Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will be recording this presentation, so if you feel comfortable, leave your questions for the end. We have two amazing guests joining us today. We have Albert Robinson, the Associate Director in the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. He's been here for 15 years. Thank you for all of your service. Currently, he is the College Senate representing the HEOs and also a chair of PSC HEO Labor Management Committee. So thank you again. And we also have Marta Clark, who has been in human resources for 20 years, bless your soul, in public and private sectors. She joined BCC in May of 2008 as Executive Director of Human Resources. So we're so very thankful for you both taking the time out and joining us today. So we will begin. Albert, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, you gave me the ability, I'm sure, already by now, right?
Yes. See. Yes.
All right. In 1 second here. There we go. That's much bigger now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everyone. And I want to thank Marta, especially for her super busy schedule, for popping in and helping us out with this, because she's the one that really will, have most of the answers to some of the questions that you guys may have. I'm just here because most of the stuff I've been through it, and she is my go-to person for answers. So, and Crystal, definitely thank you. And the association for inviting us to do something like this. I think it's going to be a big help, pretty much to everybody on the college, even if we replicate it and offer it to everyone, which is what Martha had mentioned a little bit earlier. So we're going to get started. And I guess what we decided to do is, after every job title or titles that are bundled into one, we'll let Crystal handle a few of the questions in the chat, and Martha, of course, you can handle the questions as well if any was to pop up in the chat. So we're going to start out with the hang on 1 second, I'm trying to move, sorry about that. You know how these things go, right? Hang on 1 second. See, everyone can have technical difficulties. So we're going to start out with the civil service titles, which if the title of this presentation, thanks to Crystal, is kind of designed around trying to navigate the waters of CUNY titles, which are not an easy thing to do. I can tell you that after being here for 15 years. So for the civil service titles, there's usually an exam, that would have to be taken to become to get into the title in a permanent kind of a role. And Martha, if I'm not using the right words, always jump in there and help me out with that. But for the most part, when you're hired, you could be hired as a provisional employee, which means that you'll have to take an exam when the exam becomes available. So when CUNY offer the exam, it's no opting out of it. You have to take it, because if someone else takes it and they get on the list with a high score, it's a possibility that you can be replaced. Is that correct, Martha? I think that's still the same.
That's correct. I would just like to add a little depth to that. Within the civil service division, if you will, it is managed by the state. CUNY has to comply with New York State civil service law. We also partner with the New York City DCAS organization, so that when exams are being reviewed and posted, CUNY is its own entity, however, but we do cross-reference our exams with the DCAS and the city. In addition to that, there are civil service classes such as open competitive, non-competitive, and within those competitive classes, there are exams, and then some of the non-competitive classes, there's no exam. For example, a college assistant is considered a civil service title, but it's non-competitive. There is no exam for it, and it is governed under the DC 37 contract. that's an example where civil service gets a little murky in that you have this now position called college assistant where there's no exam, but you can be hired for it, but we follow the same or similar civil service practices with that job.
Yes, and to piggyback off of that, so with the college assistant, they, they're hired at a certain hourly rate, and if at some point the supervisor of that person wanted to give them an increase, of course it would have to be discussed with the department. You would have to make sure it's in your budget, and like Martha said, to follow the same rules, you have to do an evaluation, which the evaluation form is very similar to the ones that are for regular civil service workers that they get annually.
Correct.
So that's pretty much with the with that part. These links I will send to Crystal. I'll turn this PowerPoint into PDF, so she'll be able to send it to everybody where the links will be active. There's so much information out there that people can find out if they wanted to. So if they need to. So there's a website CUNY have up that have most of the, if not all of the civil service titles. And when you click on those links, what it will do is show you the job description, which you would already know. But if you wanted to possibly think about you're working out of the job description and you call Martha and you want to talk about it and you're talking about it with your supervisor, whatever, it's best to gather all of that information, before you even, make that presentation to your director. So this website has all of the titles there that are under civil service, and to give you some other civil service information.
Correct, and I will add that on that site, as you notice, the classification identification there, the type of position it is, whether it's hourly, annually, the title code and all that information is really internal to CUNY. But the most important aspect of this page is clicking on the PDF to review the job description. Please beware of the essential functions that are within each job description. Thank you, Albert.
No problem. And the other thing I forgot to add is when you are provisional, it's very difficult to try to get some type of promotion or something, because remember, you have to take the exam. And even after you do that and you wind up staying with the college in that position, sometimes it depends on the department. I'll use IT, for example, because I know they have a lot of civil service titles. They may have an opening that come up in their department under a higher title. You can apply for that one, but you can't be promoted into it, if I'm not mistaken, Martha.
That is correct. So let me just expand upon provisional appointments. When you take a civil service exam and you are ranked on a list according to your score, and you're picked up off that list after a hiring pool, your initial one-year appointment is called probable permanent, which is really provisional under civil service law. So provisional is almost like a temporary probationary status. If there is no exam and there's no list, then the organization can hire a provisional person until such time a list or an exam comes out. And then depending on your ranking within that competitive class, you're either picked up off the list or not. And that depends on if you are reachable on that list. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we're clear about provisional, probable permanent, and permanency. Permanency happens after you've been in that job successfully for 1 year. After 1 year of service, you're automatically reclassified as permanent in that title. And even if you get promoted, and let's say that promotion doesn't work out, you actually have the right to go back to your previously held permanent title.
Okay, so thank you, Martha, for that, because the waters are still muddy for me as well. So, Crystal, do we want to take any civil service questions that people have? any, because we will be moving to the next group after this slide.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I have a question because all of this is new to me. It's like a different language. So who puts up the new position? Like if I'm in the civil service position and it's provisional, and you guys said there's no room for, I guess, promotion there, who puts the new like exam up on CUNY first? Would it be someone from BCC?
No, so all of the civil service administration is managed by CUNY Central Civil Service Office. Each campus or each institution under the CUNY umbrella must work hand in hand with the central office civil service team. They actually advertise and again, work with DCAS to promote the exams. They facilitate the coordination of the exam for all CUNY campuses, and then they provide the updated, eligible list is what we call it. And when a CUNY campus needs to hire someone within that position or that title, then each campus is responsible for requesting a certified eligible list so that they can now facilitate a hiring pool.
And I have one more question. Thank you, Marta, for that answer. So, and it's going to be probably the same question across all titles. Can an individual who has a civil service like earn tenure in that position? Like,
no, there's no such thing as tenure. There's only permanency. And I guess, being a wordsmith, you can use the two interchangeably, but permanency, again, allows you to have permanency in various titles, quite frankly. So that, let's say there's a reduction in force for any reason, or like I said, a job that you were promoted into didn't work out, you actually have the civil service right. It has nothing to do with your union contract. It's New York State civil service law to go back into your previously held permanent title.
that makes sense. Thank you.
And the words, like Martha mentioned, it's just different for different things. Like there's permanency, and then you'll hear us talk about 13.3B and reclassification and all that other stuff later on. We'll do the best we can to try to make it simple for people. All right, so moving on. So now for the CLTs, college laboratory technicians, some of you may be familiar with those titles. They mostly work in academic departments. There may be some that are working outside of an academic department, but mostly that's where they work, in an academic department. They kind of follow some of the same rules as the HEALs, the higher education officers, which we'll talk about them in a little while and all of the different levels of that. But for the most part, they can, there's different ways that they can possibly move up. I'll just put it that way, and I'll have Martha to sort that out for me because it gets a little murky. But in any event, again, this is a great website to go to find out more information. It's on the PSC website, where they can really find out most of the stuff they need to know about their title and what's being offered to them, benefits and all of those things. One of the things that is a great place to start is to go to their handbook. I went there, I checked it out yesterday. They have an older version there, but I guess nothing has changed. That's why it's still there. But it has a lot of information there that would be able to help them to navigate their title, and offers, it talks about the benefits, what's available to them, professional development, all kinds of things that they can definitely use that information. One of the pages I want to point out, and then I'll turn it over to Martha to add some other things, is page 15. When they go to page 15, it really goes over the details about their position, the salaries, the scale, and how they can possibly move up. Because for this title, they can move up, but it's based on department need. It's not based on if the employee has an outstanding record, or they have taken on some some additional responsibilities. It's really kind of tied to the department need, and then they of course have to work with the HR department and the VPs of that area and all of those different different kinds of things. Martha, anything you want to add there?
Yes, I just want to add that on page 15, you're right, it has some great information, but just a quick snippet of what's there. It breaks down the levels of the CLT position. So this is a job classification that is not governed by civil service. It is very similar to the HEO classification in that it is a union PSC negotiated title. And so you have adjunct CLTs, you have regular CLTs, you have senior CLT, and then last but not least, there's a chief CLT position. And as you go up the rank of CLTs, it includes more supervisory project management responsibilities. But I just want to make it clear that an adjunct CLT only requires a high school diploma. That is the minimum requirement starting at the CLT level. And then as you go up the rank from regular CLT to senior and then chief, there are some other educational and experience requirements based on the department's need that's hiring that particular title. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that there is actually a position of adjunct CLT.
And we'll talk more about this even when we go into the to talk about the HEOs, but these are one of those things where sometimes people get very confused. I'm sure Martha received a lot of emails about it. I know I do. So it's when you look at your salary scale, what I try to do, because I used to be a PSC delegate at one point. That's how I learned about most of this stuff. I'm not gonna lie. So when you look at the salary scale, when it goes horizontal, it's basically sometime, or actually most of the time, it could be tied to the union contract, the union salary scale contract. So when it goes across horizontal, that's usually when the union sign a contract for the HEOs and the CLTs, that's the next level of the salary on the union contract. So if you think of it horizontal, think of it that way. So if you look at that first line, right, and you look, it says November 1st all the way to the right. That increase is going to be a union PSC increase, and of course in conjunction with CUNY Central, of course. So if you were making 61,081, so come November, the next salary on that scale is 62,303. Okay, I know it sounds confusing, and I'm gonna turn it over to Martha in a minute. Now, when the most question we get from people is, well, what about going down? How does it go down? Well, that is a different story, because when you're hired, let's say you may not be hired at 61,081, right? You may have been hired at 74, 73. So that scale is there for the offer to the candidate. The scale doesn't go from top to bottom right away, but right somewhere in the middle, between the beginning and the middle, there can be a scale that's set for that department based on their budget need. So that's how they have the flexibility to hire within that range. One other thing that could happen later on, again, is a discussion with the employee, the supervisor, the department. It could be the VP of that department, HR, of course. There could be something that can be done later on where it can be, if I'm not using the correct word, Martha, please correct me later. It could be some kind of merit increase where they could, if you were making 74, 73, and if there was a need in your department to try to, based on the employee's excellence, taking on new duties or whatever, there's a possibility they could get a merit increase to the next level.
Correct. Can I take over from there, Albert?
Yes, you
So
can.
I must admit to everyone, merit increases are very difficult within the CUNY system. All right, and they're rare. However, once you are hired and you're within the appropriate salary range based on the dates at the top of this schedule, every year thereafter, you get an automatic step increase according to the contract. And that's where the lines go diagonally. Okay, and keep in mind, once you hit the ceiling, and that's that bold amount at the very bottom, you could stay there until a new contract is ratified, producing a new salary schedule. Okay, and then that's where later on in this presentation, we'll talk about the differential. But again, horizontally is when, based on those dates at the very top, CUNY is mandated to ensure that anyone within that title goes across horizontally according to the date. You go down diagonally based on your step increases that you're entitled to each year until you reach the ceiling.
Right. I knew I was forgetting one thing, the step increase. Thank you, Marta. One thing, and Marta, I'll have to definitely ask you to chime in on this because it's been a while for me. So those two at the end, you see both of them are bold. So when you reach that first bold one, and before you get to the last bold one, there is a time frame there. Martha, do you remember what that time frame is?
2 years.
2 years.
So you're at the pre-final step is what I call it for 2 years. And then you reach the final step. Now, some of this also changes, for example, and this is really, I guess, CLTs and HEOs. If you're promoted to a new HEO line, then your 13.3B calculation changes and you may be stuck at that step for another year. So I'm going to say 2 to 3 years, you'll be stuck at the pre-ceiling step. And then after that, you'll reach the ceiling.
Right. So, and then we'll talk about later when you reach that last bold area, like Martha mentioned, until there's another union contract, you'll notice you hit the ceiling and there's really nowhere, to go at that point. We'll talk about the HEOs later and how that could be. It could happen with the college laboratory technicians too. I believe it's the whatever the highest. Which one is the highest college laboratory technician title? Is it senior or chief?
It is chief. Chief is the absolute highest. And the chief position, again, has a broader range of management and project management responsibilities. But the chief is definitely the highest CLT position.
Yeah, so in this, what I have on the screen, if a person was a chief laboratory technician and they already reached that 98,391, there won't be or any of the things that are on that second bolded line, there won't be any more increases until the union comes out with, of course, a new contract. And then it'll be a new salary scale, as Martha mentioned before. Then it would start and move horizontally when that comes out. But yeah, you could hit a ceiling with any of these, the CLTs or the HEO titles, which we'll talk about that later. Some of the other things is I know that the CLTs also have some type of assignment differential thing that they can apply for, where they can get a certain amount of money, but it's a one-time thing, I believe. I don't think it's a every year thing. Is that correct, Martha?
That is correct. Okay. Again, that's similar. It's a rarity, but it is sort of a one-time payment or variable payment that they can apply for and hopefully receive.
Right. So yeah, so that's one of the things that's available to them. Being that title is under the PSC, there's also all of the professional development opportunities and different things that they can apply for. I'll just mention a few quickly, and Martha, if you have more, you can definitely mention them. One of them is the professional development grant. I believe it's very competitive. They can apply for that and use that for some type of training they may want to go to, or if they were going to a conference, they can use the funds for that. There's a form you have to fill out. It goes to your supervisor, then it goes to HR. So it's a lot of opportunities and different things that they can, that's available to them. Anything I missed, Martha?
Yeah, the only thing is that for any professional development, any type of outside training and development, it must be applicable to the work that they do on a daily basis. So right. You have to, in your description or your rationale, to be approved for that type of benefit, you have to show how this particular training or this development opportunity would enhance the work that you're doing presently.
That's correct. So I think, do we have any questions about the CLT series right now, Crystal?
Not in the chat, but I did have a question. So I know we're going to talk about assignment differential a little bit later. So maybe we just reserve this for that time. But you mentioned, Martha, that there's a one-time assignment differential. It's rare, but you can apply for it. How does someone apply for that?
And it's the same application as the other differential that we're going to talk about. They're pretty much one and the same.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. So let's see what we have up next. And this is the HEALS, which a lot of the stuff with the HEALS and the CLTs cross over, as Martha mentioned. So if anyone have any questions, pretty much we'll be able to answer them. But for the HEALS, they also have a PSC page where, again, this is your first place to start. If you have any questions, you should definitely go to these pages. They're also, Martha also have a lot of the PSC pages also on the HR website. If you look around on there, you will find these pages, you'll find the DC 37 pages, you'll find the what's the other union? I can't remember you have up there, the different locals. It's a lot of links on the HR website. So you should definitely, if you're not sure where to find these and you can't Google them and you can't find them, go to the HR website, you will find them there for sure. So the HEALS also have a handbook. You can see the link there. When you click on that, it'll take you to the handbook. It has everything in there that you need to know about being a higher education officer, which the titles are very similar to the CLTs. So there is, and then try not to get confused. And this is for the supervisors, Martha, right? Because I know we get these questions sometimes. Try not to get confused about when you see the acronyms, because they can be confusing. So the first one on the HEALS is assistant to HEAL. So that's a small case A and capital HEO, right? Yeah. And then the next one is a HEAL assistant. So it's capital, and look at Martha saying, I'm a corrector if you get it wrong.
I was gonna say,
I'm back in school.
I wanna help you. I wanna help you take over. I'm chopping at the bit to, help explain this as well, because I was confused when I first started at CUNY, and I said, what is going on here?
Yeah, so the next one is the HEAL assistant. So that's capital HEO, and on the end is the lowercase a. So you are HEAL assistant. The next level up is the HEAL associate, and I'm not going to do a pop quiz. I had planned that, but I'm not going to do it. It's just all capital HEA. That's the HEAL associate. And then the highest one in the HEAL series is the HEO, which is the HEAL, higher education officer. So those are some of the titles. Anything you want to add there, Martha?
Yes. So for the assistant to HEAL, that position, in a generalization, it's really someone who I would say is an assistant to an executive. or an assistant to a department chair or a director level position. They do have very light supervisory duties of college assistants. Within that department, they can assist with, ensuring that the college assistants are doing what they need to do. Then a HEO assistant is a little higher classification than the assistant to HEO, in that they may take on special projects within a department. They also have some supervisory responsibility over, let's say, COAs and CAAs and college assistants. Then when you get to the HEO associate level, you could be a department manager, a supervisor, an assistant director per se. That associate title lends itself to more management level type responsibility. And of course, a full HEO, that's a director level running an entire department. So I just wanted to add some context to how the levels change with regards to going up the managerial ladder.
Right. And for the salary schedule, if you notice, it's very similar to the way it's set up, very similar to the CLTs, where it's the same thing that Marta and I explained. The union contract goes horizontal, and then if you're not at the top of the scale all the way at the bottom, you will get those increases annually going vertical. So again, the same thing applies at the end. I think it's the same for HEOs, where you hit that first bold, then there's a possible, if you're not reclassified or anything, 2 to 3 years before you wind up hitting that the second, which is the last bold one.
That's correct.
Okay. So it all operates the same way. The best thing to do is to visit the website, look around in there, see where you are. At least that way you know now how it works and how the salary scales work. Because I know when I first started 15 years ago and I looked at this, I didn't know which way to go. And Martha wasn't here, so there was no asking Martha where to go. Crystal knows, she's been around for a while. Sometimes it was very difficult to get this kind of a explanation of these kinds of things. So so that's how the salary scale looks with the HEOs.
And Albert, I just want to point out a slight difference between this salary schedule and the CLTs. If you all recall, under the CLT salary schedule, there was a bolded note area under the bottom that talked about the $1,500 differential. And so that's not on the HEO series, because the differentials are pretty much, it's the same process. It's just the HEO series have a higher amount in the differential that they can apply for. And a lot of CLTs didn't realize that they can apply for a differential. And that's why that stipulation is under the CLT salary schedule and is missing from the HEO salary schedule.
That's correct. So let me try to go, there we go. So now to talk a little bit about what Martha and I mentioned before, is the assignment differential. And I believe, I'm not completely sure, I think the CLTs have a similar process, but I'm not sure if they use the same form. Martha and I can look into that and find out. I'm not sure if that if they changed that or if it changed. But in any event, so if a HEO, except for the higher education officer, which is the top one, but the other three, if you wind up at the top, that last bold schedule, if you wind up there, there's a possibility that you can apply for what the PSC call assignment differential. And what that is a one-time payment. It's not every year, it's a one-time payment. And but you have to fill out an application. And you can see some of the steps there for it outlines how to prepare the application, what should be included. Take it from someone that have seen people go through some of this and went through some of it myself. Whenever they ask you for something, please, it's best to provide it. Of course, if it doesn't apply to you, then that's different. But if they ask for it on the application, you should provide it. So when you fill out the application, of course, you would talk with your supervisor first, discuss it with them, and then you would submit the application to the Hill Labor Management Committee, which I happen to be the chair of. So I'm gonna plug that right now. You would send that to me. What I would do at that point, because Martha, of course, is the person that knows about people records. I don't really know that much. When I get the application, I don't even know what I see on it. So I send it to her and she vets it, right? She says, okay, the person's been at the top of the scale for more than 1 year. And any other information and questions I have, she answers them. And then it goes back to me. And then I convene the committee. The committee is consisted of, it's three Hills and 3 cabinet position people. So it could be a couple of VPs, it could be a dean, and then on the Hills it says 3 Hills. Anything
And
you want
Albert,
to
I
add
just
there?
want to specify that the committee members are appointed by the president.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're not just randomly selected, they are appointed by the president.
Yes. The people that are on the president's cabinet are appointed by him. The Hills that are on the committee are appointed by the PSC. So they're the ones that, it's kind of a split thing. They wanted to keep it where, everybody has a fair stake in this. So, and I don't even remember how long I've been the chair. I forgot. It's been many, many, many years. And we do get applications from time to time. It's very competitive. And like I said, the applications, please, if you are thinking about doing something like this with your staff, or if you are a staff member and you're thinking about doing this, please provide all of the information that's needed. It really speeds up the process. It helps us, it helps the committee, it helps HR. If you're not sure that you've been at that top, last bowl line for more than 1 year, you can always email HR and they'll be able to tell you if you can't somehow another kind of, count the years and look at your title in CUNY first. But sometimes you can figure it out for CUNY first. But if you can't, just email them and they'll be able to tell you. So that will save you some time of submitting an application and you may not be qualified for it quite yet. Go ahead, Martha.
No, I was just saying you're on point. Points.
So that's one of the ways, one of the things that are available to the Heal series. Let me see if I can get this. There you go. Now,
can I ask a quick question about the reclassification real quick?
Yeah, we're about to talk about
not
that.
reclassification, I'm sorry, assignment differential.
Assignment differential, sure,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So do people, can they be denied?
Yes. So they can get a formal denial, and generally there's a brief reason that they would be denied, and Albert and the committee will create that response and forward it to the individual, sometimes CCing their supervisor as well. I do want to make one point that I forgot, in that when the applications come to me, I review it in detail. Albert will tell you, I look over everything, and I also go back and I look at performance evaluations, because that is also part of the criteria in moving the process along. So if someone has had a needs improvement, or a performance evaluation that had some questions on it, generally I may send that application back to the individual and explain why, or have them add more details as to why they believe that they're entitled to this differential. Okay.
And then if they are denied, do they go up? They can go up the following year?
They can apply as many times as they so choose, as they believe that they're entitled to this opportunity. Again, approval is not guaranteed.
Okay.
Right. Because there is a few more steps after it's approved by the Hill Labor Management Committee. From that point, it goes to the Hill Screening Committee, which we'll talk about that in a minute. They also vote on it. And then from that point, it goes to the president to make an approval. And then, of course, I believe at some point after the president, he submits it for approval to the Board of Trustees. Is that correct, Martha?
That is correct. And the reason why that last step has to take place is because each CUNY campus has a limited budget for the assignment differentials. So we just can't sort of willy-nilly say, okay, we're going to approve 15 or 20 or even 10 assignment differentials per year. And I know that there is a very low number, and I believe it's between 3 to 5 maximum that each campus is budgeted for. And the Board of Trustees actually meet and they talk about what the assignment differentials will look like each fiscal year. And I don't know what the approval was for this year. So there's a very limited amount of assignment differentials that we can actually approve per campus.
And one more question, I'm sorry. So you said like every year it could be a little bit different. What's the average amount? Because we learned that CLTs, they get 1,500. What would it be for? Or is
it's 2,000 if I'm not mistaken, or I think it may have gone up during the pandemic to 2,500 for a brief period of time.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And denials, you know, people shouldn't, whenever you're going up for anything, whether it's a, you know, if you're trying to get a merit increase, or if you're trying to get a assignment differential or a reclassification, which we're going to talk about in a minute. When you get denied, you shouldn't get, you know, don't get discouraged. You know, look at why you were. That's the first thing. That's what Martha mentioned. Because we've had people that were denied, and they really didn't analyze why they were. So I would explain to them, you know, if you look at the committee write-up, why it was denied, if you can correct that, do it. And then, you know, reapply again. Because it could have been some documents that was missing. It could have been some questions that weren't answered, even because the committee will ask questions. They will ask questions. And if sometimes the applicant will not answer them, they just say, I'm not answering the questions, and you can't make them answer, right? So whatever is the reason for denial, you should really work on what that reason was. That's your first step. That's your guide to try to get it done the next time, or even the next time after that, if you're denied again. Okay.
It's great that you receive feedback. So that's really excellent.
Yeah, they get feedback. They have to, so that way they'll know what to do for the next time. Okay. All right. Now, reclassification. Now, reclassification for the HEALS is it's almost, well, let me put it this way. It's way more work, of course, to prepare for that than it is for the assignment differential, which is what Martha had mentioned before. Reclassification is a big deal, right? It's going from one of those HEAL titles. Let's say you were going from assistant to HEAL to assistant to HEAL to HEAL assistant. Martha mentioned some of the additional duties and things that you'll have to take on in order to do that. So when you do that, all of those things have to be documented, and it has to be, of course, over some period of time that you can show what how it has increased, what have you taken on, and should that particular title be reclassified from assistant to HEAL assistant, right? It's almost like you're presenting it before the committee, and you have to put together there's an application, and then of course there's all these additional documents that you have to provide. And if you look at the ones that are on the screen that are different from assignment differential, is it's asking for your pre and post job description, right? Because the first thing that the committee is going to look at is, well, what is the difference between what you're doing now and what you were hired to do? That's going to be one of the things they have to look at. And then, of course, sometime in some cases when you're moving up the HEALS, or when you're trying to reclassify someone in your department, you have to think about the possibility that the org chart will change. It has to change, right? So Martha mentioned about, when you go up to HEAL associate, right? That requires you to be more management. You're running different types of projects and different things like that. So that may mean that in your org chart, the way that looks, it may change where certain people would, will be answering directly to you. You will be responsible for these projects now and different things like that. So that's why it acts for the pre and post org chart. Of course, the supervisor in this particular case, and the same thing with the assignment differential, they can provide, some letters from, to the committee, to the application from themselves to really help support it, and any supporting documents. Those supporting documents could be, any additional or specialized training that you may have went through for that newer title, or not the newer title, the newer job duties that you're doing. It could be some type of management of certification or whatever it is that you went through. And it could be letters from, from different departments that, you may have worked with and helped them. The person of the, it could be a chair of an academic department, or a chair of a director of a non-academic department, whatever it is. All of that is very helpful when you're putting together and to try to come up to go and apply for reclassification. Go ahead, Marta.
I would just like to add that in this particular scenario, employees, some of them are not aware that you can self-nominate. In this particular case, if you have been speaking to your supervisor and you feel that it's been to no avail and nothing is moving, you can actually gather all of this information on your own and self-nominate. And it is my responsibility and the HEAL screening committee's responsibility to review the package. Again, reclassification is not guaranteed, but I think the best approach to this is to look at what you were hired for as compared to what you're doing now, and then possibly what your future goals and objectives were told to you that you'd be responsible for, and to write all that down in a chronology order, time order, to show over time, this is the progression of my particular position. And this is why what I was hired for has some, it's kind of obsolete, and even the job itself could have developed into something new, but it is your responsibility for those who want to self-nominate to document that information thoroughly, and you can self-nominate. I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah, that is true. And I think the application now for assignment differential is you can also self-nominate. I think that option is there as well. So yeah, thanks, Martha, for reminding me about that. Just to go back quickly. So the process, again, when you go to the website and you click on the link, it has all of the instructions. I just have a screenshot of part of what the instructions are. But it's a little bit different from the assignment differential, because there are people at the PSC that are assigned to review the application even before you submit it. Because who's better to know because they get notified when someone is denied, right? So who's better to know than them if you need to add something or you forgot to do this? They will give you advice on your application even before you submit it to the HEAL screening committee, which I think is really, really, really great. You'll click on that link. It even have an email there. You'll email it to them and say, hey, I'm going for reclassification. Can you please review this? And they will review it and they'll give you feedback. So that's the first step before it even goes to the HEAL screening committee, because this one don't stop at, it goes directly to the HEAL screening committee. It's not like the assignment differential was stopped at the HEAL labor management committee. The reclassification will go directly to the HEAL screening committee, and then they begin to, of course, review it, and then they'll have a vote on it, and then it kind of follows those same kind of steps. It would then, if it's denied, it would go back to the supervisor and, of course, the applicant, and let them know. And then if it's moving forward, it would go from the HEAL screening committee to the president, and then to CUNY Human Resources. And I believe the Board of Trustees at some point is involved in that as well.
That is correct. And as far as the Board of Trustees is concerned, they receive basically like a personnel action report that identifies the reclassifications. And then during one of the meetings, the Board of Trustees meetings, they will rubber stamp it basically after the president and I have signed off and submitted that transaction via CUNY first.
So I think Marta, unless you have anything to add about reclassification, that's all I had for the reclassification part.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I just want to reiterate the importance of the present job description versus what the individual thinks they're doing or what they believe they're doing, providing documentation to substantiate their claim. And sometimes I just want to say the org chart may not change necessarily. So it's just the position that they were hired for has become obsolete and it's morphed into something else. And you just need to paint that picture from a chronological order to substantiate your claim to be reclassed.
Right. Good. That's a good point.
We have a question in the chat, if I could just read it out to you both. Can you
Sure.
please elaborate on the differences in roles or core duties between HEA and HEO, seeking to understand the differences in the two lines as they relate to reclassification?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier briefly, a HEO associate is a HEO class by which you may take on more supervisory duties, but you're not managing the entire department. You may have more project management level duties, but again, you're not responsible at a director level to ensure that a project is implemented, but you're coordinating the implementation, if that makes sense. Whereas a full HEO, HEO, all capital, that's a director level position most often. Not even managerial like a supervisor or department manager. It's director and above before you get to an ECP line.
Thank
Did
you.
that answer the question? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Tiffany, you have your hand raised if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, so I believe I'm higher education assistant, right? I'm looking at the salary. I went on CUNY first while you guys were talking. So in regards to reclassification from higher education assistant, so my understanding, I can stay in the same job title, but be reclassified in a different CUNY title, or would my job title also change if I'm looking for reclassification? That's like my first question. And then I have some follow-ups.
Okay, so normally a reclassification may include a functional title change. So let's just be specific here. A HEO title or the series is a union negotiated employment series, right? So that is called your contract title. So when you're an AHEO, HEOA, all capital HEOA, and then full HEO, that's your contract title. Your functional title could be department coordinator, for example. Most often a department coordinator is an AHEO or a HEO assistant. Now, when you're looking at the nuances between AHEO or HEO assistant, that HEO assistant does more coordination within a department, like I said, managing a group of COAs or CAAs, and they're considered to be more team leads, okay, with sort of an assistant supervisory role. So your functional title may change, it depends on what it is, but your contract title will definitely change when you're being reclassed.
Okay, and then how long do these new duties that you've taken on should last in order for you to think that, you know, okay, this is for reclassification?
Well, that depends on your comfort level and based on your salary. It's on a case-by-case basis, right? Because sometimes you may take on different duties as the department has changed, as times have changed, and those duties make sense for, you know, where you are in the organization, where your department is and all of that. So I can't really give you a definitive answer because it's on a case-by-case basis per employee based on your level of comfort in the work that you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just chime in on that as well, where it's really like, you want to, if you were to compare it to time, I'm just going to use an example. This is just an example where you would just assign these duties 2 months ago versus if you were doing them for a year. As Martha mentioned, when you're setting up for the reclassification in the chronological order, you will be able to show that you were doing the duties for a year. Like she said, it all depends versus if you were only doing them for 2 months. So
no, I thought that it had to be like for like these duties had to be in place for a minimum of a year, or no, or if it ends, if this is only a project that has been, let's say we received the grant and the grant is for like 3 years, like would that be something that qualifies as an example to add into your reclassification? Or another, I wanted to also know if you pick up extra things without your department telling you to, does that count or doesn't it?
So I got to stop there. And it's great to be proactive and gung-ho and, have the zeal to do more and step up, but be careful in doing so. I would caution that, but I also want to make it clear in that we talked about merit increases earlier, right? So if one feels that I've taken on more duties, or now we have a grant that's lasting for 3 years and I may have to be a part of this project, that's where instead of a reclassification, you can discuss with your boss, listen, can I get a step increase? Because some of the duties that you've been asked to do could be within your current contract title and functional title, and just have a little extra steps that you have to take or projects that you're working on. And that's an example of where you may be more successful in asking for a step or a merit increase than you would a reclassification.
And that's definitely good advice, Martha. I just brought up the salary scale back on the screen again, because you can look at it, you can gauge it and see, well, I may not qualify for reclassification based on these new things I'm taking on, but I may ask for a step increase. So it would go, a step up, which you may be comfortable with that. You may say that works better for me. I'm okay with that.
How does that process typically work? What would you have to do to present that argument? Is there an application like there would be for the reclassification? How would you have to navigate that process?
So there isn't an application for any type of step increase or merit increase. That would be a dialogue and some type of documentation, whether it be a memo to your supervisor, an email. You got to start there to communicate directly with your supervisor saying, hey, when I started, I was responsible for these 10 action items. Now I have 20. And I know the extra 10 that you've given me are somewhat within the scope of my job, but I have an increased volume in the work that I'm doing. And here's my rationale as to why I believe I'm entitled to either a step increase or a merit increase. And you start there. And then it's your supervisor's responsibility to then advocate on your behalf if the budget lends itself, to that step increase, to say, all right, I need to submit a request to give an increase to this individual. All right. And that's where it starts.
And that's Martha explained it perfectly. And I can tell you from someone that went through it many, many, many years ago, that's exactly what I did. I wrote a memo. I sent it to the supervisor. We met with the dean, and then we met with the provost at that time. And then it did happen, but it wasn't overnight, but it did happen. If it's something that you feel that you deserve, you have to try, to go for it. But definitely the memo is the way to go. I'm glad that you hear it from Martha and not from me.
Thank you.
In terms of the distinction between here and here, I'm still trying to understand those two roles. Is there a differential or difference between the sizing of the units that those two lines oversee, the number of staff that they are expected to supervise, et cetera?
So the assistant to HEO doesn't really supervise anyone. That's the small a, capital HEO. Is that
The HEA versus the HEO.
Yes, so the HEO associate generally will have a functional title of supervisor, manager, assistant director. And they could supervise CAA, COAs, and college assistants, and they have more project management type role, coordinating certain functions within a department, whereas a full HEO generally is a director. They have a functional title with director somewhere in their title, and they are responsible for a department, a grant, let's say. They're managing grant funds. They have more, I would say, of an executive level responsibility or entry to executive level responsibilities. And so the career progression would go full HEO, and at some point it could be ECP, dean, assistant dean. That's the career progression there. So again, an associate is more of a supervisor, manager, project manager, coordinating projects in a department, assisting with ensuring that whatever was written in a grant, it's coming to fruition, whereas a full HEO, director level, entry level to an executive type position. Did I answer your question?
You did, thank you, I appreciate it.
And one of the things I forgot to add as well, please go online to the HEO handbook and also look at the minimum requirements for each HEO job. That's also a good differentiator between the HEO categories, okay? Because as you climb up the HEO rank, although a bachelor's degree is required, years of experience change.
Good point. Any other questions, Crystal?
Yeah, there's one in the chat. For an HEO associate, can they only manage projects, or is it mandatory to also manage staff?
And that depends on the department and what's going on within a department. So it's very flexible. It's not that they are confined to just project management, coordination, or confined to just managing people. It depends on what's going on in that department and their operational needs.